Coming up on Global Perspectives, I will be with our newest bilingual facilitator who speaks Vietnamese, Van Go. Welcome to Global Perspectives. I am your host, Karen McDonough, Manager of International Family Outreach Programs. Our guest today is Van Go, our Vietnamese-speaking bilingual facilitator. Hi, Van. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Karen. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm super excited for our families to get to learn a little bit more about you. And now that you're part of our bilingual facilitator, I want to talk a little bit about you and your experiences. But I always like to start asking our guests about their personal experience and where they grew up. So you're from Vietnam.
I am.
And how old were you when you left Vietnam?
I was about 40 years old.
40 years
Yeah.
old. Okay, perfect. So a large part of your life, right?
Exactly.
And your education was mainly in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. So tell me a little bit about the educational system in Vietnam. Is there, do kids all start school at a certain age?
Yeah. So usually they start school at the age of 3.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of pre-K.
Okay. And is
And
that mandatory or is it optional?
I think it's optional, and
Okay.
parents have to pay for the full cost of
Okay.
education until the children reach first grade.
Oh,
Then school tuition is free
okay.
on the way to high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the from 3 years old to first grade, parents have to pay, but then after that, it's just public education, like we
Yeah.
understand it here in
Yeah,
America.
yeah.
Okay.
Except that when students reach high school, they have to take entrance exam, and
To
only
get
top
into?
to get into high schools, and only top performing students get into public school. Other have to go to private school where
Okay.
the cost is very high.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and whoever who cannot afford that have to go to vocational school.
Okay. Now, I understand, and I don't know if it's the same, and I know in some European countries, when kids get to high school, they have to already kind of pick what they want to study. Is it the same in Vietnam? Like, do kids have to choose early on? Like, do I want to study science or do I want to study literature or other things? Or they all do the same thing?
Since when I was in school, it's kind of we do the same thing. We did the same thing.
Okay.
But recently, I think in the last several years, they kind of divide the kids into Group A, Group B, or Group C. For example, Group A will mainly math and physics
Okay.
and chemistry. Group B kind of focusing on biologies.
Okay.
Group C or D, I guess, social science, things like that.
Okay.
And then
That's
they
super
will
interesting.
pick their specialty. Let's say when they reach 12th grade.
12th grade. Okay.
Yeah.
And do all children, whether it's public or private education, do they all learn another language?
If they live in the cities or kind of area close to major cities,
Okay.
if they live in mountainous area or remote rural area,
Okay.
there are not enough foreign language English
Oh.
teachers,
Okay.
so they may not be able to learn English. And the quality of the English training is very poor too. So I started learning English until since I was at 6th grade,
Okay.
but I didn't speak it.
Okay. So and is it really only English, the only language that other than Vietnamese that they focus on? Just English?
Yeah. So before during my time, it could be Russian or
Okay.
English, because the north of Vietnam they
Right.
are communists, so
Right.
they prefer Russian.
Russian. Okay.
But after 1990, when the Soviet Union kind of stopped
Yeah.
existing, then we switched it to English.
Okay.
But now some started Chinese.
Chinese. Okay, very
Yeah.
interesting. I think also it must be like it is here in the U.S. where we are having a growing understanding of the importance of speaking other languages, right? So that's super interesting to me. And when you were talking about the difference between urban and rural areas, does the school system say, okay, you live here, this is the school that you have to go to, or do parents have any choice on the public school part of it?
Uh, at the elementary level and middle school level, uh, the school must be based on geographic,
Okay.
but must be based on address.
Okay.
So
So
we
similar
can't pick.
here.
Yeah. But in high school,
Mhm.
again, the entrance school exam will determine. Yeah,
Oh,
children
yes,
with
yes.
high scores go to best schools.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Based on the
yeah,
scores.
yeah.
Okay, very interesting. And then the do children? Is it? I know our kids, are basically it's about almost 7 hour day. How long is the typical day for a school child in Vietnam?
Usually it's about 5 hours from
Okay.
7 or 7:30 to 12.
Okay,
12
so a
p.m.
little bit shorter day.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and do
Yeah.
they get lunch with their day, or do they go home and eat?
Sometimes if usually the children need to stay at the school
Oh,
because parent works. Yeah, so
okay.
but they have to pay for the aftercare and they have to pay for lunches.
Okay, so the actual school portion of the day is only till the middle,
Yeah.
and then if you're working, you have to
You
pay
must.
for. You must, yeah. Okay, all right, very interesting. I like that. And so then, does that mean? And I'm sure it makes a difference between urban and rural areas. But what about school transportation? Do parents provide
No transportation.
No transportation? Okay, but I know in the urban areas there must be more public transportation, right? Where
Yeah,
kids are able
exactly.
to take buses to do that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
And-
usually people kind of parents prefer to take their kids to
Take the
school
ski-
and
okay.
take them back because that way it's easier to control the kids.
Right, especially today, so they're not all running all over town. Okay, very
Yeah.
very interesting. So I skipped over another part about more specifics about the school day, because I think we hear the stereotype of in different Asian countries that the grading and the academics are much more rigorous and much more difficult, and we hear about how their school system. Their children tend to outperform American children. So, what are the grades like? Do they get like just pass fail, ABC, 10, 9, 8? How does it go?
Yeah, so in Vietnam, we use the 10 points grading scale. So
Okay.
children get 10, 9, 8,
Okay.
something like that. And about school, I should say that something I like about school here,
Okay.
I mean, prefer schools here, but something I don't.
Yeah.
For example, because there's very few universities in Vietnam, so the competition is very high. That's why children must study very hard if they
Okay.
want to get into good universities.
Okay.
And that's why I guess they force the children to study too much. Just
Very
memorizing is not good. Not
Right.
good education, to be honest.
To just memorize and not really understand. Okay.
Yeah. And
That's
That's-
interesting. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah.
That what is the reason why the push is so hard?
yeah,
But if your choices are more limited,
yeah,
then the competition
Yeah.
is harder.
yeah. And here too. So, for example, if you live in the U.S., there's a lot of choice. I don't have
Right.
to study too hard to get into college.
Right.
And if I don't get into college, I can have a different career.
Right.
In Vietnam, if you don't get into college, yeah, you can't get a good job.
Okay.
You can't raise a family. You can't buy a house.
Okay.
So that's why people push their children,
Right.
I guess, too hard.
Right.
Yeah,
And then obviously the effects on the children's mental health and all of that is
And they didn't
impacted.
learn much.
Right.
So it's for me too. So I went to college. I
What did you
learn
study? What did you study?
chemical engineering.
Okay.
The
That's
top
not very
school-
easy, man. That's not easy.
To me, it's not very difficult, but I didn't learn much, to be honest,
Okay.
until I worked for American company. That's
Okay.
when I learned a lot. And education too. I didn't learn much about critical thinking,
Mm.
how to kind of make your argument, how to understand a book, what does a book say.
Right.
To be honest, I didn't learn it until I reached America and
Okay.
went to college here.
Because it was so much of it based on memorization.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you, like you said, the critical thinking piece of the education is lacking a little
Yeah,
bit.
exactly.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I wanted to get back again a little bit to the actual comparison of schooling, because you obviously are working with our parents. Some of them are more recent, some of them are longer immigrants, but maybe they were grew up and raised in Vietnam, and now they are raising children in our own educational system here in Anne Arundel County. In Vietnam, what is the expectation of parents' involvement in school? Are they expected to take part in meetings with teachers or events, or what does that look like?
So in Vietnam, because the support from the schools and the state is very minimal,
Okay.
so parents must take the main responsibility
Okay.
for their children's academic performance.
Okay.
Yeah, here I guess here what I see after 2 months working here, I was amazed by the support by the school system, the staffs, and the state.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So in Vietnam, like in terms of, I'm thinking, I was thinking organizations like the PTA or social events or after school sports. Is there much of that in terms of those enrichment kind of things?
no.
No.
Actually, they have PTA,
Okay.
but I guess the main purpose of PTA, I guess, is to kind of soliciting money from parents for the schools here.
For the school. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So would it be even like supplies? Like, are children expected to bring all their like notebooks and pens and everything? The school doesn't provide any of that.
No, nothing.
Okay. Okay. Very interesting. And obviously, I think you were here in the U.S. during COVID.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know anything about during COVID or even since, now that we understand how much more we can do virtually, how much more kids can do virtually? Is there any? Do you know if there's any virtual instruction opportunities for kids
in Vietnam? So during COVID, for children who live in major city like Hanoi or Saigon, they may afford virtual classes as long as they have computer. Some poor family do not.
Okay.
For kids in rural area, I guess they just stop school.
Yeah. So
yeah.
it would make sense from what you were saying in terms of the amount of support that maybe we as a system can offer kids. If it is different in Vietnam, like you were saying, obviously the school was not providing computers, the school was not providing that kind of thing. Okay. All right. Very, very good. So you had mentioned earlier you've been part of our bilingual facilitator team for a couple of months now, and you've had a chance to work with our families and learn about some of the questions and concerns that you have. Tell me a little bit about what you see the Vietnamese speaking families in Anne Arundel County. What are their concerns or what they want from our school system for their children?
So I guess as I told you, the level of support that the state and the school system give is really great. So whoever can kind of utilize that would be very beneficial for them.
Right.
But for Vietnamese parents, I guess there are a few problems with them. First, because they don't know about the service that we offer. For example, they didn't know that a bilingual facilitator is available, so that they can kind of ask for help.
Right.
And also the culture, because we live in an autocratic system where the government is like they don't support They
Right.
don't support, and they kind of we are afraid
Mm,
to meet with a government official.
okay.
So they tend not to ask for help. They don't want to ask for help, and they just keep their difficulty with them.
Right.
Like yeah,
Oh, well, and I was going to say, so yeah, so that's something, a barrier that, like you were saying, no matter all the wonderful things that we may have to offer, first, just knowing that there's somebody that they can ask questions of in their own language, but then also the fear of, it's like, well, maybe I don't want to know all of that. So I think that's something that you've already done a lot to make sure the community knows you, make sure that you're out there. For our viewers, if you don't know, we do have a Anne Arundel County, Van's Vietnamese speaking Facebook page that families can reach out to, and on our website we do have the ability for the website to be translated. Granted, it's not perfect, but it's important, and we will be putting your contact information on the screen so that anybody who watches us who has any questions or needs any support. Because the other part of what our show hopes to do is not just reach parents, but also any staff member, teachers in particular, who say, oh my goodness, I have a family in my classroom or a student in my classroom. Mom or dad, their first language is Vietnamese. Maybe they would like to have a parent meeting, and now there's somebody with knowledge of the system who can support them. So that would be, a really great thing. Um, is there, as much as we're learning about you and the educational system in Vietnam, what do you think? Like, I loved what you said earlier about why maybe some families are not reaching out for the support. First, they didn't know it was there. And second of all, there's a certain kind of barrier of reluctance to ask for help. Is there something else that you would like our viewers to know about our Vietnamese speaking families in Anne Arundel County? Anything about just something that is special about them, or what some of the goals that they have for their children that we could support?
I guess other than the two problems that I have told you, I think another major problem is that they because we came from a culture where corporal punishment is fine, as
Yeah.
long as you do it with the attention of helping the children.
Right. Yeah.
And like we at home, I mean in Vietnam, we would tell the child to lay down and spank on his
Behind.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that way we can tell the kid what to do until they are older.
Right.
Here parents kind of they from the parents I talked to, they told me that they could not do that in America.
Right.
The corporal punishment is prohibited,
Right.
and that their children kind of threatened to call 911. So I think that's one of the major problems because parents don't know how to discipline the kid.
Right.
And as a kid, I was a kid, so I know I tend to do wrong things. So
Right. Well, and that, I think that's such a common thing, right, between a lot of our immigrant families, that whether it's discipline or respect, or how you show respect, um, in how you behave in public or whatever, they're those of us who were raised in another country, and then we're trying to raise children here, and it's like, well, this is what was fine for me. How do I make sense with that for my child who's in a different country, in a different system? So I think that is really important to be aware of, that the cultural norms at home might be different, and then parents may be struggling with, how do I properly and effectively discipline my child without doing something that I shouldn't be doing. So I think that is really, really important. Um, And to wrap up a little bit, Van, I know you've had already interactions with families, and we have plans of something coming up, so hopefully before the end of the school year to try to reach our parents. Is there anything else in particular that you would like the families that might be watching to know?
Yeah, so I guess for the viewers,
Yeah.
I guess if you know a Vietnamese family of a Vietnamese family, tell them that school offer a lot of helpful services.
Right.
You just need to ask, and if you can't speak English, there are people who help you
can help
to kind of interpret or translate. I think that's the first step and the first important step.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then also for our viewers to remember that Van is only one person, you're only part-time, and you cover the entire county, right? From, North County to South County, but you've been doing an amazing job. So we are super, super thankful that you're part of the team.
Thank
So
you.
I'm
Thank
very,
you.
very glad. Thank you all for being here with us today. That's it for this edition of Global Perspectives. I'm Karen McDonough. Until next time.